Oh, ready to rock and roll. It's another big week. And Patrick Mahomes trying to do something that doesn't typically happen to this Chiefs team. That's bounce back off of a loss. Last time they had one, it was December of last year. What you can expect against Kansas City. Not to mention Jared Goff and company. The Lions are rolling. They're coming off a historic offensive output. Why one of our analysts seems to think that the matchup against the Colts might be closer than it looks on paper. Full details coming up next on Game Day Preview.
I don't do this for the paycheck. Step out on the field and hear the crowd roar.
Ooh, they showed up. I got my dogs with me today. We love each other, man. Let's go fight. We're still hungry.
Thrown perfectly by Mahomes. Touchdown!
What a throw. What a catch.
Good boy! Oh my goodness!
I think most of us are buying on this to Jaden Daniels, but the Commanders coming off back-to-back losses. There's some questions on whether or not this team is for real. A divisional opponent today that is in disarray in the Dallas Cowboys, and I think Jaden Daniels would love to extend that losing streak to 6 games for that team in Dallas. So with that, we welcome you to a brand new edition of Game Day Preview. Mike Am along with Steve White, Cynthia Freeland. I feel like we're home stretch now. And the clock is ticking, and if you're a bubble team or trying to solidify some playoff positioning, this is a critical week.
It is a critical week. You just talked about the Washington Commanders. This is a team they got themselves some pad, but can they hang on? And Cynthia, we're talking about teams like the 49ers, teams like that. Can they actually get in? And that's a question we weren't asking the past couple of years.
Absolutely not. I mean, right now it's looking like the NFC West is only going to have one contributor to the playoffs, which is not something that we usually don't ever. We're always like, oh, 2, maybe 3.
Right.
Now we're like, maybe 1. Oh, well, obviously
and it
1.
Might be the Arizona Cardinals,
right.
which was the team that everyone had on their dance card before the
Really?
season started. By the way, the San Francisco 49ers, one of those teams that's hoping to get there. We will talk about the Niners in just a moment, but you got to be on the field to make a contribution and healthy. This is a pretty good list here, mostly actives for a lot of these players. There are a lot of questions around the Giants. Daniel Jones, we know it's Tommy Cutlets. Yes, Tommy DeVito getting the start. More context around Daniel Jones and his options in just a little bit, but Malik Neighbors and Kayvon Thibodeau ready to roll. But as I alluded to, the San Francisco 49ers, a team that needs a win. They do not have Brock Purdy. For more on the matchup, Omar Ruiz has us covered.
Hey, Mike, for the first time since taking over as starting quarterback of the 49ers, Brock Purdy won't play because of injury. They'll also be without superstar pass rusher Nick Bosa, a player that Packers head coach Matt LaFleur described as a game wrecker. But the 49ers are still confident they have the talent it takes to make a playoff push and a deep postseason run, thanks in large part to the history of doing it before. In 2021, they started 3-5 before eventually making it to the NFC Championship game. Same story in 2022 after a 3-4 start. So quarterback Brandon Allen will make his first start for the 49ers today, someone that the team has confidence in because of the way he prepares and really how the entire quarterback room prepares. From Nick Mullins to Jimmy Garoppolo to Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan has shown a history of having quarterbacks come off the bench to find success on the field, hoping Allen provides that today against the Packers.
Omar, look, when Kyle Shanahan's got some days to prepare, knowing that he doesn't have his quarterback, you got to imagine he'll cook up some interesting things. And yes, the Niners, 500, sort of surprising here. Pivotal path. Cynthia, I was watching you over on Game Day morning, and you had some interesting numbers around the Niners. Your model suggests a win gives them a 56% chance to make the postseason. A loss would drop them to 40%. Time for Road Warriors. It is presented by Cord Marriott. I know the models will tell you one thing, and yet from a San Francisco perspective, they still have to be able to execute. You and I were talking before the show. Reality check time for Kyle Shanahan's team.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what it is. We mentioned that they're 500 right now. They're playing a Green Bay Packers team who they've ended their season, the Packers season last year in the playoffs, so you know the Packers are hungry. And, you heard Omar talking about Brandon Allen and backup quarterbacks coming in and having success for the 49ers, one being Brock Purdy. But can he do it consistently with a diminished roster. We don't know if George Kittle, he's got that hamstring issue. Cynthia, Deebo Samuel, they have not figured out how to kind of get him going yet this year. The running game hasn't gotten going. So this is a game of a lot of things have to fall into place for them to beat the Green Bay Packers today.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at this, and by the way, that number you talked about, both of those are if Brock Purdy comes back next week.
Right.
The numbers get more grim should Brock Purdy not be available next. Remember, they have Buffalo, pretty difficult opponent in that one. But when I'm looking at George Kittle and the best opportunity to win in this matchup, when he's lined up as an inline receiver, things have gone very well for the Niners. When he has faced a team like the Packers that plays the defense in the same way, and when the Packers have faced inline receivers like that are tight ends, it hasn't gone well for them.
No.
So that is one area I expect Brandon Allen to be able to exploit, Kyle Shanahan to be able to target. This is going to be one of the areas where we still see some success. It's pretty much the only thing that's been reliable.
It really has been. I mean, again, you look at the Niners, Trent Williams, even their left tackle is questionable to see if he's
I know, we're like,
they are really
who
banged
is
up.
playing? Can we get a list of who is playing as opposed to a list of who's not playing?
This has been the story for this team all season long, which explains that 5-5 record. I got to tell you guys, I got the schedule in front of me the rest of the way. This is
Not good.
This is a must-win for them.
It is. It really is.
I mean, look at these opponents. These are teams. Look, besides the Lions, who's you make an argument the best team in the NFL. I know Buffalo's in that conversation. These are generally desperate teams who have to win their games to try to solidify playoff positioning or even a spot in the postseason.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say they haven't had great success against their divisional opponents this season, and they only have 2 left. That makes it harder.
And look, that game is in Miami. Miami's a team that's starting to get hot. If they get hot, that's a dangerous team to watch.
Yeah. For a little more context on the San Francisco 49ers team, our NFL Network insider, Mike Garafolo, joins us right now. All right, Mike, we're talking about the Niners. We know that Brock Purdy is banged up, but just give me some context on what the fallout is for the San Francisco squad.
Well, the fallout is Brandon Allen's going to get the start, a guy that they trusted enough to be their number 2 coming into the season, and a guy that has played before and has won games in the NFL, so they've got a great amount of trust that he's going to be able to run the offense the way that it needs to be run today against the Green Bay Packers. As for Purdy and moving forward, the hope is that this is going to be a 1-game absence for him and that he'll be back for the Niners next game. The problem is they really had confidence after that MRI earlier this week that he was going to be able to play. There was nothing that they saw on there that led them to believe that he was going to be down. And this thing just sort of took a turn on Thursday because there was optimism Wednesday, and then all of a sudden on Thursday, the answers started to get a lot less certain with regard to his availability moving forward when you spoke to those in and around the team and close to Purdy. So Thursday, when they pushed his media availability back to Friday, you got the sense that something just wasn't right, and then not practicing on Friday. They had made the decision by that point to back him down, give him some rest in the hope that he will be ready to go for their next game.
Mike, you were in the thick of things of the biggest story in the NFL this past week. Daniel Jones getting released by the New York Giants. Yeah. We know he's not going to be with this team, so what's his next move?
Well, nobody's going to claim him on waivers. That's the expectation, Mike, because you would assume the $11 million moving forward for the rest of the season that you'd have to pay him, and the $23 million guarantee next season if he's injured while playing or practicing down the stretch here. So that's going to go away completely now. Look, I'll also add to this. My understanding is there were conversations about potentially removing that guarantee between Jones's representatives and the Giants, but there was never a formal offer made by either side to do that. And even if there was, the Giants were looking for a spark here to move on. I mean, perhaps he could have stayed as the backup without that injury guarantee, but again, it was never really formally offered. So the expectation is that once Jones clears waivers on Monday, he will then sign with either a practice squad or an active roster of a team that's either in the playoff race or out of it, and it's going to come down to Daniel Jones looking at all the possibilities, and we've talked about potentially the 49ers when it comes to Brock Purdy, if this is something that's going to potentially linger. The Ravens have been mentioned, I know that, but look out for the Raiders. Ian Rappaport mentioned that. I've been told as well that they would have some interest. So potentially you could be a backup on a playoff team, or you could start now and begin to set up your case to be a quarterback, whether it's with, for example, Vegas, or with another team to have a little bit of tape and saying, hey, look what happened. Once I left the Giants, I played a little bit better. Daniel Jones is going to have to make that decision once these opportunities are officially presented to him starting Monday after 4 p.m. Eastern.
Mike, it is a fascinating story, and I know you're going to be all over it for us here at NFL Network and on the NFL channel. But I do want to shift my attention back to the NFC West and a matchup that, look, we talked Niners, and I know Mike just gave us some context around the change there. We got a Seattle team that is hosting Arizona. As dangerous they come, maybe playing as good as football as some of the best teams in the NFL is this Arizona squad. You think Seattle is susceptible, though, because of what's happening on that defense?
Kind of, sort of. Seattle's one of these teams we still haven't figured out exactly what they are yet, and we're this deep into the season. But defensively, their run defense has been incredibly leaky. But then we see them last week against the 49ers come out and play really well, hold San Francisco to 17 points. So this is one with their linebacker, Ernest Jones. They acquired the former Ram, who they acquired, I believe, Tennessee in a trade midseason. He's only been with them 3 games. He's 5th in tackles, Cynthia. He's got 37 tackles. He's an impact player on the run and the pass game. And what do the Cardinals love to do? They run the football. They can power run it with James Conner, Kyler Murray, the breakaway plays. This is a potential difference maker, which can keep the Seahawks in the game. We know how great their secondary is. Their front seven's been where the questions are, but Ernest Jones is the peg in between who could close that margin.
It is wild to think that their linebackers who started week 1 are no longer
gone
on the team. So whatever. So long story short, the one thing that on the other side of this matchup, that we haven't seen the Cardinals really consistently bring pressure against opposing quarterbacks. And when you give Geno Smith time, do you know what happens? The answer is good things, especially in this matchup. Jackson Smith-Njigba has a very nice plus matchup out of the slot. That's been an area where just like stay away from Budda Baker. That's my coaching point right here. But ultimately, that has been the area where they've been able to stay away from Budda Baker. This is a team where you're going to be able to see, especially without Geno Smith having to worry about pressure coming really fast, you're going to see some nice deep connections. We know Geno, there's a reason he's throwing for so many yards. There's a reason he has so many different great pass-catching options. DK Metcalf, of course, as well. So Tyler Lockett. But I think in this matchup, I think it's the JSN game here.
Second in the NFL in terms of completion percentage, about 78% when he is not pressured, and that when
pretty good.
When the heat is coming, there's a big time drop for him.
He can throw the deep ball. He can drop it in there now.
52%
according to Next Gen Stats when the heat is brought. So we'll see how Arizona and their defense decides to handle Geno.
What you gonna do with your mama right now? Bring your energy today with the first snap to the left. Show me something tonight. Let's go. Woo!
Hurts in the gun. He fires it out in the flat. Barkley beats one man, spins past another, leaps over a third.
What?
To the end zone. Puka diving catch. What a throw, what a catch.
That's just fun.
He throws middle. Caught by Cooper Kupp. Breaks a tackle. Touchdown, LA.
Time for Rookie Watch. It is presented by New Era. How about this Eagles defense and what they've been able to do, especially when it comes to the draft? They got some studs. And Quinyon Mitchell, this is a hell of a list. Most targets without allowing a touchdown. And he's going to probably break this record.
Well, look, and part of it is he's not getting targeted nearly as much as those other guys. Quinyon Mitchell is not being thrown at. He's actually, as crazy as it sounds, in Darrelle Revis country. Listen to some of these numbers. Terry McLaurin, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans all had 2 catches or fewer when they're facing the rookie from Toledo. Plus, he is a willing tackler. Now, he's going to be challenged in this game against the Rams because they've got 2 options, but other teams have had 2 options. The one he's got to cover most of the time, Cynthia, shut down. So, I mean, this is arguably the defensive rookie of the year. We still got time to play. We're going to talk about somebody else a little bit later. And then there's Cooper DeJean playing out of the slot, too. Willing tackler, always in the frame of where the ball is. So they nailed it with their secondary picks with their rookies.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hearing Quinyon Mitchell's like the best trash talker in the league, too, so he's right up there. Which I gotta like that. I want to see. I can't wait till we see like Quinyon Mitchell against like George Pickens. That's going to be the best trash talking game of the season.
Yeah, a great individual matchup. As far as the individual X's and O's here when it comes to this game, I mean, Saquon Barkley obviously has been a complete monster so far this season. We talked about Daniel Jones. There's the reason why maybe the Giants are in disarray because they don't have Saquon. What stands out about what you're seeing from him?
Well, it's the versatility, right? Like you're finally getting to see full Saquon. The full Saquon has been unleashed. Why? Because he's getting some help up front. God forbid a good O-line makes a great player even better. Listen, you don't get that hard-hitting football news anywhere. You got to come here for that. But when it comes to Saquon, he is the special player. We've always seen his yak be good, so yards after contact. This year you're seeing he's even improving upon those already great numbers, because when you're running faster by the time you're contacted, it takes you longer to bring it down. It's physics. We just did a little physics lesson.
Here we go.
Welcome to Game Day Preview. You are learning physics here as well. But ultimately, it's also his versatility in the pass catching game and all of the different ways that they can disguise where he's going to be used that make him just this. We're finally seeing the full Saquon.
And trust is a wonderful thing, right? When the offensive coaches and the offensive line trust him, he trusts them. That's also a part of the benefit to the success we're seeing with Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, look, trust issues.
You're a Giants fan.
I know.
You're just dying right now, bro.
I can feel it internally as you're talking about some of the issues that were there. Look, I mean, multiple offensive coordinators, multiple head coaches, offensive lines that were patchwork for a few seasons. This isn't a surprise that Saquon is balling.
Is it going to hurt you when Daniel Jones is good next year?
You know it is. It's going to be the worst. No, actually, I hope he thrives, because I think a really tough situation for him in New York, and I think he handled it with a lot of class. Sam Darnold, by the way, 14 giveaways this season. That leads the NFL. 6 of those 14, though, have come weeks 9 and 10. Hold on to the football. Yes, we can finally stop talking about an undefeated season for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Just worry about a Super Bowl, right? For a little more, we head to Charlotte, where Sarah Walsh is standing by.
Thanks. The Kansas City Chiefs coming off their first loss since last Christmas, and yet they still get a lot of questions about what is happening with this offense that has not performed to the level it has in years past. Patrick Mahomes says they need to start faster. He said they're good in the fourth quarter getting a score when they need to, but they need that urgency from the beginning. Now, there had been some hope that Isaiah Pacheco would return for the first time since breaking his fibula in week 2. He practiced in limited fashion, but Andy Reid ruled him out, said he's doing great, but he's going to be day to day. They get a Panthers team that allows the most points per game in the league. However, Carolina feels like perhaps they're finding their footing. They're getting confidence, and today they go for their 3rd win in a row. Now to Jane Slater in D.C.
Hey, Sarah. Well, there's not going to be a lot of familiar faces out in the field today for the Cowboys, so casual Cowboys fans, heads up. You do get back the quarterback, Gerard Bland, who's been away with injury, but opposite him, Trayvon Diggs, he's got a groin injury. He and right guard Zach Martin didn't even make the trip. Martin dealing with shoulder and back injuries. And then at safety, well, Marquise Bell just moved to IR, joining Dak Prescott, their quarterback, who was there last week. So an opportunity for a lot of young guys to step up, but definitely a team that has been beaten up a lot with the injury bug this season. Now to Cam.
Thanks, Jane. Loud Jared Goff chants rained down from Lions fans here who've seen their quarterback lead them to 9-1, a large part due to his accuracy. But their left tackle, Taylor Decker, told me he doesn't get enough credit for his toughness. Goff is tough as hell, Decker said, and a big part of that is his mental toughness. Decker said he was traded from the Rams, and he didn't let that write his story. He said also physically tough because he'll take a shot in the ribs and not let that balance him as well. On the other side, Anthony Richardson is leading a resurgent Colts team with their mind on playoffs, coming off his best game as a pro. And Mo Alley Cox, their tight end, told me Richardson's showing up to the facility earlier. He's more attentive, more focused, and we feed off his youthful energy. It makes us a better team. Back to you, Yammer.
All right, Cam, you're right. Like, this is a really good football team as you look right now at the AFC playoff picture, and I'm thinking about a Colts team that is still in the hunt, which is just odd to think about considering the ups and downs that this team has had. This is going to be an uphill battle, though, against a Lions squad that has, I know this will bring it, I'll say it, you don't. I think they're the best team in the earmuffs, best team in the NFL. I think they've played that way the entire season, but yet you think the Colts can hang in this game.
This is going to be a tough game because of the physicality that the Colts play with. I mean, this is one where we know Detroit can score pretty much on anybody, anyway. But if the Colts can do what teams try to do, and those are sweet uniforms right there, by the way, grind out long drives. They've got the offensive line to do it against the one weakness, if you want to call it that, for the Lions, is their defensive front. They've got the offensive line, long drives, and that guy right there, Anthony Richardson. He's run the ball well. He's come off the bench, and he's passed it better. So if they dink and dunk, death by paper cut, and eat up the clock, Cynthia, this will give them some opportunities because, again, physically and the physicality that they play with on both sides of the ball, that's going to be something the Lions are going to say they want some, but we'll see how much of it they want if, again, the Colts can control the clock.
Well, and Terran Arnold not playing makes things a little bit easier after we saw a great passing game out of Anthony Richardson last week. But we also saw a really good performance in all phases from the Lions offense last week. One area that's really
you think? By the way, that was ridiculous.
It was all right. You know, like they just scored a few points. Just as long as you get one more than the other one, that's all you need to win a game. But the surplus points, we can save them for this game. Point being here is when I'm watching Jared Goff and all of the different ways that he's been successful, one area that's been kind of a little bit of a little hiccup here, has been against zone defense where he's thrown all 9 of his interceptions. Do you know what the Colts defense does more than anyone else?
All they do.
Whether or not it's the right call.
Right.
They're just like, we're doing our thing, you can adjust.
We're going cover 3 zone.
But this is why I think that this team, and especially you just saw Sam Laporta, he's going to be back for this. Yeah. I think that they take this opportunity to get Jared Goff against a zone look that he can probably handle with more of his assets back, with Sam Laporta back. Let's work out some of the kinks. I think that's part of what we saw last week, was working out some of those kinks in areas that had been potential issues when you go back to the Texans game. Well, now you have a zone defense here. I think that they're going to take the opportunity to get the man going.
I like how Cynthia said that they're practicing within the game.
No, they're not. They're working out the kinks.
Okay.
You know what's going to be wild to me, because I know you both touched on Anthony Richardson and what he can do in this offense. I don't know if we've seen 2 good games in a row from him.
That's a good point.
So
But we saw a great game last week. I mean, this is his first. It was his highest career yardage, first time completion percentage over expected in his career. So I don't know, something to build on.
Definitely a building block.
Yeah.
I just wish for him and that fan base it wasn't a building block against the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
Who, once again, just a juggernaut. But look, proof is in the pudding, and hopefully he can get it done. Meanwhile, Caleb Williams, speaking of quarterbacks who've had some good stretches this season, he's one of them coming off of a great game, even though it was a loss. They're trying to snap a four-game slide. Stacey Dales has more from Chicago.
Good news for the Bears. Keenan Allen active despite his questionable status with that ankle injury. Also good news for an offense that started to come alive despite the loss to Green Bay last week with new offensive play caller Thomas Brown. As quarterback Caleb Williams described it, the play call came in faster. He was able to get to the line without being rushed, be more decisive. They will face a Vikings team that features Justin Jefferson, who's had a lot of success against the Bears, but as I spoke with him earlier, they have to find a way to get into the end zone. Running back Aaron Jones told me they don't believe they played their best football just yet. Currently the 5 seed in the NFC playoff race, these Vikings.
They are the 5 seed, and what's wild is they've lost one more game than the 9-1 division leaders in the Lions, who, by the way, have an 70% chance of getting the 1 seed, which would mean home field advantage. But let's take a closer look at Vikings and Minnesota. And look, the Vikings have had a really good season for the most part, and they've been able to rectify after that 2-game losing streak what we've seen from their defense. What should we be focusing in on, especially what they do against the run?
Well, the thing about the Vikings is we always talk about, and we have done it, we're guilty. They blitz, which inherently to most people means on passing downs.
Right.
They're bringing an extra pass rusher. By the way, they have 23 sacks when not blitzing, just putting that out there. But one of the things that they do exceptionally well is defend the run with different types of run blitzes and different types of looks to keep running backs guessing. So I don't think we talk enough about how good this Vikings defense is at stopping the run, which of course will be a big deal given how Chicago is going to probably try to keep adapting with their new offensive coordinator. So in this it is also wild to think that the Vikings could have like 11, 12 wins and be second in the NFC. It's possible. Like, that is crazy when you could potentially have a team that's under 500 get in as the winner of a wild stuff here.
It's remarkable. By the way, you mentioned those 23 sacks. That's the 3rd most when not blitzing in the NFL. Broncos and Ravens, those other squads. And yet, I don't think that they get to that win total. Has it not been for the play of their quarterback? And Sam
100%.
Darnold, who, look, not for nothing, like, I don't think people thought that this was going to be the Sam Darnold that we were going to get.
No, none of us did. I mean, look, we're like, okay, we've seen the body of work of Sam Darnold. He's talented, but can he hold up?
Yeah.
And that's where we are because, look, he's been turning the ball over, right? 14 turnovers this season. That was always a knock out of him, even coming out of USC. He has never been in this type of situation where he is a front runner going into playoff football time. So can he hold up? We talked about Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson. He's got the weapons to do so. Now, can he get through the breaking point, Cynthia, of, okay, this is really on the line. We've got to catch the Lions, or we've got to maintain our playoff position. He hasn't been there. Now let's see if he's really made that full turn.
As soon as Cam Robinson really gets fully acclimated, then we'll see.
There we go.
Right? I think that makes a big difference.
Look, Vikings, we feel good about their chances to get to the postseason. The Bears, for as good as some of the moments have been, it's kind of an important game for them. At home, toughest remaining schedule in the NFL, so the wins might be hard to come by for the Chicago fans the rest of the way. Time for our Salute to Service presented by USAA. There are over 170,000 military members serving overseas. And to commemorate the NFL playing in London, USAA organized a skills competition for U.S. military members stationed at RAF Lankenhall Heath. NFL legends Charles Tillman, Maurice Jones-Drew made an appearance to provide tips and coaching. And thanks to the military members for their service, we appreciate you more than you know.
I really want to see MJD's broad jump now. I bet you he can still,
I know he can still do it.
That's right. Still got it. Still got it, MJD. We love you.
Big way. Travis Kelce, one more touchdown reception that would set this KC franchise record with the Hall of Famer Tony Gonzalez. Closer look at the Chiefs around the corner. Well, back here on Game Day Preview, and I know you are ready to rock and roll with me tomorrow night after the Monday night game.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good one. Right over here.
Think?
Yeah. Ravens and Chargers, two teams that I think stylistically, and maybe it's because of the DNA of their head coaches, which is, I guess, shared, right? Technically,
it is. Yeah, they're brothers.
There is that. So
they're connected on 23andMe.
Maybe they're going down that path. The Ravens right now, and I know we talked about the Lions being, arguably the best team in the NFL. I think it's almost shocking to me that the Ravens have 4 losses with the personnel that they have. This is going to be a tough game for them.
Well, I mean, it's of course going to be a tough game. I mean, they're playing the Chargers, who are incredibly physical, and the Chargers don't beat themselves. When the Ravens have lost, they've beaten themselves. You look back at last week. I mean, we were watching the game and talk about it, Mike. Yeah. 2 missed field goals. The abundance of penalties
12
that they commit. I mean, this is the most penalized team in the NFL, right, Cynthia?
It is.
And this is not what championship teams do, but we've seen teams overcome it. The Chiefs were like that for the past couple of years, and they've overcome it. These are fixable issues, but they've got to lock down. Because, again, in the game against the Chargers aren't flashy. They're not splashy, but they don't beat themselves. If they come in here having 10, 12 penalties, they're going to lose that game to the Chargers, and they're going to slip a little bit in the playoff footing in the AFC, even though they've got a ripe opportunity with the Steelers losing Thursday night to the Browns.
I mean, you talk about that, and the really big key this year has been what's happened. When we talk about penalties, the O-line penalties, it's very interesting because when you get 3 new O-linemen, you're like, this is kind of like a specialty sort of offense with Lamar Jackson because he's a special sort of quarterback. Well, now you add Derrick Henry to that mix, and that is what's really gotten them through potential shifts on the O-line. But when I'm watching them rush together, that is what's keeping defenses off balance. So if you're looking at these Chargers numbers, you're like, this is a really good defense. Hey guys, Chargers defense, really good. But ultimately, the likes of the rushing combinations that you're potentially going to see, even though Chargers are extremely familiar with most of the personnel on the Ravens, seeing that they all came from the Ravens. But ultimately, you're going to have some different looks with Derrick Henry in town, and you better believe, like, this brother bolt, like, there's no way John's like, hey, Jim, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. Hey, Jim, I'm going to tell you what, like, not happening.
And the guys in the Chargers defensive front, like Tuli Tuipulotu has been so tough against the run and setting the edge. That's going to be really something that the Ravens are going to have to live with.
Look, statistically speaking, there's an obvious story here about the Chargers being really, really good. But, Steve, you and I were talking about it. Watching them, they look like the Ravens defense last season.
Right.
Fast, the pursuit, it has been terrific so far this season. Time for Who Scores, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Not a huge surprise. Some of the familiar names that are on there, especially when it comes to the King and Lamar. So I ask you, Cynthia, who finds the end zone?
I mean, why is Derrick Henry, okay, rushing yards, cool, but like, let's talk about, the man gets in the end zone.
He gets in the end zone.
What does he do this year? What has he not done? That's double negative. I know you don't speak that poorly, but what has he not done in any games? Not get in the end zone.
Right.
So I'm looking at his odds to make that goal line stand. I don't care how good your run defense is against anyone. That is a different sort of animal when you are dealing with Derrick Henry with a full head of steam.
I looked up some of the numbers. Derrick Henry has faced a #1 scoring defense as the leading rusher in the NFL twice in his career. The numbers,
oh my God.
plus 140
yeah.
and at least 1 rushing touchdown.
Insane.
He's a monster. All right, Eagles and Rams. Who do you like to find the end zone?
I'm going Dallas Goedert, the tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles. He only has 1 touchdown this season. That's why I think the unsuspecting possum is going to get into the end zone in this game, because the way the Rams play defense, they're a little softer on the interior. They sit back a little bit, and they've got multiple perimeter threats to worry about. That's why I think Goddard's somebody who could sneak in and get into the end zone.
I'm with you there. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns this season, and this week new customers can bet $5 and pocket $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. You can download the app and use promo code GAME when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. I didn't think we were going to see this year. Tommy DeVito, yes, Tommy Cutlets getting the start for the Giants. One of our fantasy experts thinks he's a must-start.
You know who else didn't think that? Drew Lock.
Oh, God, that is a great call.
Keep pouring it on, Cynthia. Mike is dying over here.
I thought it was going to be Drew, too. If you're looking for a bright spot for the Dallas Cowboys, and maybe this is the only bright spot, CeeDee Lamb. My God, the guy just competes, and he just makes play after play, even when they're not winning.
You can just put dot, dot, dot. You can put even, dot, dot, dot.
He's
It's
great.
like, where do you
He's still great.
I know.
He's still great.
Just an absolute monster. He is a joy to watch out on the football field for a little bit more. I know fantasy owners are like, I wish Dak was out there because that would have helped his stock tremendously. Michael F. Florio is with us. If you have not checked out his start-sit column on NFL.com every single week, bad job by you. Mike, awesome to have you with us here. As always, want to go through some players that you think should be riding the bench and some ones that are must-starts in your lineups as we take a closer look at some of the quarterbacks here and some of the players that, once again, you think could potentially struggle on that sit column. Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, Anthony Richardson. Tough matchup against those Lions. And Caleb. The starts, a little bit of a who's who here. The one that stands out to me, Bo Nix, the rookie quarterback who's had a great season. Mike, it sounds like there's a quarterback, though, that's not on this list that you think should be in lineups. Who's your guy?
Yeah, everyone needs streamers this week, and I know I'm not the only one here fired up for this guy, Yam. From your backyard, the pride of the pork roll, the passing paisano, Tommy Cutlets, whose touchdown rate last season was doubled what Daniel Jones has been this season. We've seen he can add valuable points with his legs. He's put up good fantasy numbers in the past. I am streaming him in a number of 2-quarterback leagues, and with 6 teams on bye, some injuries like Brock Purdy, and then some of the sits, you said some bigger names that are in tough matchups. There is definitely a spot to stream Tommy DeVito this week, and I'm fired up to watch him play today.
Fired up to watch Tommy Cutlets. I like it, Mike. I'll roll with you because I will be watching this game, and I hope the Giants can figure out a way to get a win with Tommy DeVito. But one other note, and very quickly here, it's the only time in my life I've ever rooted for someone from Don Bosco High School. Went to my rival high school down the street from there. So shout out to Bergen Catholic as, once again, the Giants trying to make something happen here. The rituals, the whole thing, we're ready to roll with it. Quarterback that caught your eye, Cynthia?
Yeah, I don't think you can sit Sam Darnold. I also think that if you look at what the Bears like to do, they love to play single high safety. And you know who has eaten against that? 599 yards, leads the NFL in yards against single high. That would be Justin Jefferson. So I'm liking the opportunity in this matchup. He said to Stacey Dales, I was watching earlier, and he said he needs to get in the end zone this week. He's itching for it. He's ready. He's wearing a cool hat. All of the things are in place for him to have a huge day. And if he has a huge day, that means Sam Darnold has a huge day, which means I don't think you can sit him.
Yeah, I like where your head's at here. And this is a Minnesota team that's been rolling in a lot of ways. I actually think that game's it feels like a shootout to me. I don't know why I have that in my head, so I might.
Yeah, me either, bro.
You're right. No.
One-sided shootout.
Not having it here. All right, as far as the running backs, Mike, here's some of the guys that you think should be riding the bench. I'm also looking at some of the starts here. I think a lot of fans cannot wait to see from a Kansas City perspective. Pacheco and Hunt in a backfield together, and we know what Tampa Bay has brought to the table, and maybe not necessarily the greatest matchup when it comes to the New York Giants and their defense. But Tyrone Tracy is a guy that's catching your eye, Mike. Why?
Yeah, he has just been awesome for fantasy purposes. In his last 6 games, he is averaging 19 opportunities per game. 4 times he's topped 14 fantasy points, twice over 22. So pretty safe floor and a high ceiling. But I think Tommy Cutlets could be a good thing for him because DeVito last year threw 20% of his passes to the backfield compared to 15% this year for Daniel Jones. And the Bucs have really struggled against pass-catching backs. They've also allowed the 5th most fantasy points per game to running backs. So opportunity, matchup, even if they're trailing, could get a lot of dump-offs. I'm starting Tracy everywhere I have him, which is a lot of leagues, and I advise the listeners to do the same.
I'm doubling down on this as well, because in daily fantasy, when I'm looking at the opportunity, now that everything is priced, so you're using this fake salary cap number, I think the return on investment for Tracy could be one of the highest among any of the running backs this week. So he is a nice little way that you can fit in some more expensive players elsewhere.
Also just did a double check, and I know that there was some excitement around Pacheco being close.
He's not
officially
out.
Pacheco. So we will not see him in this matchup there. Still expect Kareem Hunt, though, to ball out.
Yeah.
Take a closer look at the wide receivers. Earlier in the show, Cynthia already told us that Jackson Smith-Njigba is someone that she does like, and I'm also circling a couple of those Chargers wide receivers. But Mike, explain to me, Deontay Johnson, what's what's the role that he has? Because I'm trying to figure this out.
Yeah, we all are trying. He, in 3 games with the Ravens, 6 yards. That's all he has. 4 targets in those 3 games combined. 30% is the highest percentage of snaps he has played in any of those 3 games. And it was actually his first game with the Ravens. So his usage has decreased, which is not what we were hoping for. Even with 6 teams on bye, injuries, Brock Purdy being out, it doesn't matter the situation. I don't see any situation where you could start Deontay Johnson until we see his usage change, because we could love the matchup, whatever, the offense. If he's giving you 6 yards in 3 games, you cannot start him.
On the other side of that matchup, you have a start for both of the wide receivers for the Chargers. I'm a little concerned. I think that now that they've had a couple of weeks to have a little bit of changes, where they brought in Dean Pease, like a little bit of, some things could be a little bit different. I like Ladd still, based on the routes he runs. I'm a little leery on Quentin Johnston, especially after last week watching where he was running against the Bengals, who have a much more generous, they're pretty generous. They're pretty generous, yes, those Bengals last week, but ultimately, where are the routes and where's Kyle Hamilton going to be? Yes, go with Ladd McConkey a little bit more than Quentin Johnston, just so you know.
If the Ravens, Kyle Hamilton, they got to come up to stop that run game. There's going to be some opportunity. So this is going to be a really intriguing one in terms of Quentin Johnston.
Yeah, Ladd McConkey also showed late in the game last week, like, hey, maybe he is Justin Herbert's go-to wide receiver. He is a fun dude to watch out on the football field. Time for Who's Eating Good. It is presented by Applebee's. Did I hear correctly? Drake May's your guy, Mike?
Oh, Drake May has quickly become my guy, not just this week, but on the year. He has won me over. I keep saying it. He reminds me of early career Josh Allen, because if you look at just the numbers, you would feel a lot differently than if you watch Drake May every week. He is a playmaker who could extend plays with his legs, add valuable fantasy points as a runner. He also has a cannon for an arm, so he is always a threat to make a big play. He's been averaging 17 fantasy points per game, but I think this could be even more of an upside game, as he could be chasing points against the Dolphins. So he is a high upside streamer in fantasy and someone who I expect to put up good numbers in week 12.
He needs a cool nickname like being a Bo-lever. So somebody needs to come up with like a Drake May name like that otherwise. But look, I'm going to be a homer here, and I'm going to tell you that Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to have a massive day. I think this is going to be a higher scoring game than most people think on both sides of the ball, especially, like we said, Terrion Arnold not playing. That could potentially bring some opportunities for the Colts to score even more points. But the Lions, they don't take their foot off the gas, and this guy's riding, what, a 9-game touchdown streak? Just leading the Lions, like, set the franchise record. But part of the reason is he gets a huge target share. So it's all about what they're looking to do, and they're looking to feed Amon-Ra St. Brown. So you should be fed. You're going to eat good.
He's his own buster.
Right. Like, eating good, everyone. People eat good at Applebee's. Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to eat good in Indianapolis. It all works out.
Kneecaps.
He's there. Mike, you're the best man. Always appreciate the insight. Once again, the Start Sit column, you can catch it over on NFL.com. Amon-Ra, by the way, was one of my favorite wide receivers in the league.
Jay-Z.
Oh, the man who was the soundtrack of my college years. Jay-Z at the Commander team.
Is he saying the Cowboys got 99 problems?
I think there's more than 99 for the Dallas fans that are out there watching. That dude's cool.
Really cool.
Oh, Brock Purdy. Yeah, not going to be playing. Staying warm, though. Cup of joe, cold temperatures in Green Bay.
He looks so sad. He looks so
I'm sure
sad.
he's not playing.
I know. I think, that's just, I feel bad for him. It's okay, kid. It'll be okay next week.
Sitting at 500, my Lord.
Yeah.
Like, they need this game in a big-time way here. Quarterback's obviously the major story, and for different reasons. We know Jordan Love is going to be out there.
Right.
Allen is going to be the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. What do I need to know about this matchup?
Well, first off, as much pressure as we think on Brandon Allen replacing Brock Purdy, I think the pressure's on Jordan Love because the opportunity is there for him to have a big game. No Nick Bosa for the 49ers to win individual matchups. That means I think the 49ers are going to blitz. But Cynthia, you know this. Jordan Love against the blitz, no bueno. He is also not very good on third down, and he's averaging more than an interception per game.
Yeah.
This is something, if you give the 49ers opportunities to stay close by turning it over, by not converting on third down, that's where the 49ers experience gets you. He found that out in the playoff game last year when they were winning the majority of the game and they blew it late. If he makes mistakes, that's something that could happen again. I think more pressure on Jordan Love for this game than on Brandon Allen, as crazy as that may sound.
Yeah.
We talk about like McVay tree, Shanahan tree, all the same tree. They all come from the same place. But you really want to look at running backs. And both of the running backs, both of the main running backs, also the secondary running back, I think that this could be a Jordan Mason resurgent moment. Because I think part of the way that Kyle Shanahan beats you is by all of these different run schemes. And both running backs. So Josh Jacobs could have a massive day. So could Christian McCaffrey. So could Jordan Mason. Like if you were a fantasy player, there are 6 teams on buys. We talked about that before. Might as well take a flyer on that guy because I'm going to predict right now heavier sets. A lot of different looks where you're going to confuse where the run is coming from. Heck, we may even see him go back to outside zone. No.
Wow, not that.
Wild. But ultimately, both running backs are going to really determine who wins this game. And I think that the Niners keep things closer than the number. Why? Because of that run game.
And they got to get Deebo Samuel involved, too. That's been a real...
He could run. He could be a running back in this game.
Absolutely.
They could go back to using Deebo as the Swiss Army knife again.
Well, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I think it is so significant. The San Francisco 49ers were on the short list to get to a Super Bowl this year and win this game. They're sitting at 500 right now, currently in 10th place in the NFC playoff picture. That's 2 games behind the Packers, who they're playing today, and a game and a half behind the Commanders. Clock is ticking here.
Yes, it is.
Like, let's go. If you're going to make it, you got to make it because the Arizona Cardinals right now could be the team to beat in this division. And don't look, the Rams are also in the conversation, which is wild to me. And speaking of the Rams, they get the Eagles in a really important matchup for...
Huge.
Yeah. All right, why?
Well, when you're looking at this, the opportunity here, I mean, the Rams, they're fully in it. And like we talked about before, the NFC West is probably going to be giving just the one division winner to the postseason. This is a really massive game for Jalen Hurts, though, because the one part of this defense that I really trust, it's the front. They've gotten great push from their rookies. They've gotten great opportunities from their second-year players. They've got 4 guys there. They're like, dang, you did a really good job of drafting for the past 2 years. Really good stuff. But Jalen Hurts and what he's been able to do, not just the tush push. I'm so sick of calling it that. I don't even like the brotherly show. We need to rebrand that again as well. I'm getting cranky today. I'm old. It's fine. But ultimately, the opportunity here for Jalen Hurts to take that next step, this is the game to do it against that front. The O-line has been good, but all of the different ways that we've had some question marks. Is this team for real? That's what we're going to be seeing in this match.
It's a coffee issue, by the way, just to be clear. I think
coffee
we're all,
or lack of?
Lack of. We're all feeling it.
I'm just like, no more. I don't like the word grown men saying tush unless they're talking to a child. No,
that is a no bueno moment. Sorry.
Okay.
Hate it.
I know you were fired up about the Rams and some of these young guys.
I am fired up. So since we're talking about youth and tush and stuff like that, the Rams defensive front, you alluded to it. I mean, you look at Jared Verse, their defensive end, the first-round pick they had, and then Braden Fisk, his former teammate at Florida State. These dudes dominate. Then Byron Young, number 0, the second-year edge rusher. But Verse is a power guy, and then there's Fisk, the athleticism. You talk about Jalen Hurts, his ability to scramble, things like this. The one thing the Rams do well up front with 4 is they fill run lanes. They do not let people escape because of tenacity. Look at that by Braden Fisk. I mean, he's all over people. That athleticism and the way that they're playing right now, that allows them to sit back in that zone, kind of that umbrella zone on the back end. They're going to have to do that today because Rams are not going to allow explosive plays. They'll allow the stuff underneath. And eventually, these guys do a lot of damage in the second half of games. That's what they're hoping to do against that really good Eagles offensive line.
Look, I know both of you guys are talking about the front from this Rams team and some of these young players. I'm just going to throw this out there. Their safety in Cam Kitchens, who's been terrific.
Oh, he's been fantastic lately.
3 interceptions on the season.
Quentin Lake, too, is a really
good
player.
Yeah. The kid out of UCLA, who I know was a leader of that team for a good stretch of time there. Dallas and the Commanders going head-to-head. The Cowboys obviously have had some struggles here. Still surprising to me. When Dak, we figure out, hey, not going to be playing, I said, hey, Trey Lance is going to be that guy eventually. He's still not. What's the signal being sent from Dallas?
Well, I mean, I think some people are probably saying, well, maybe they don't want to play him because he can't play. Or the other guys don't believe in him. And, we still want to keep things together while we still have several games left in the season. Or maybe they're saying, Zach Martin is going to be out. The offensive line is really banged up. Let's not put him out there behind an offensive line. And that's, you're basically saying, okay, Cooper Rush,
let's kill Cooper.
Get beat up, right? But I don't know what the signal is, because now I'm kind of like, maybe they say if we play Trey Lance, we're waving the white flag. I don't know. Everyone else when they're making quarterback changes is looking for a spark. And frankly, Cooper Rush hasn't been horrible. But to have him throw 55 passes like they did last game, you can't do that. No. You can't do that to anybody. So, again, this kind of leads to the big question mark bubble that's been hanging over the Cowboys since the offseason.
And what did McCarthy say before that game last week? Hey, we can't have Cooper Rush throw for 50 times. And he threw 55.
Yeah. Oh,
well, it's not 50. He didn't lie.
You're right about that. And yet, on the flip side, I'm watching a Commanders team. Look, I know they've lost 2 straight games, and I know we're believers in Jaden Daniels, and yet there's some cause for concern right now that you've picked up on.
I mean, when you look at Cliff Kingsbury, because his offensive stats as the coach or the coordinator, so the guy responsible for being the architect, things get bad after about week 9. So the points per game is about, pretty significant here. And the one that's not on there that you should absolutely look at, it's the giveaways per game. So the turnovers that almost doubles in the second half of seasons. So I'm watching in this particular matchup, in this particular game. You can run on the Cowboys. Do you know how you prevent giveaways? You run the football, or you do short passes that mimic the run. I'm actually looking at the fact that Austin Eckler has, if you're looking at the opportunity to pass to him, this is a guy that's who they target in those short passes. And the Cowboys give up 12.7 yards per reception to running backs. Woof. That's crazy.
Look, I've covered this league a long time, and I've seen OCs get fired time and time again when they fail on the back half of seasons. That's when you get into divisional play. You play your opponent the second time. They've got film on you. If you don't adjust, then that's an issue.
You get adjusted.
Yep.
Yeah. I wonder, too, what happens if the Commanders lose this game?
Depends how.
Yeah.
They're not going to. Look at that score.
Oh, actually.
That's a massive game.
Then it's a lock.
It's a lock.
Cynthia's projections here, right on cue, 29-17 the score that Cynthia's got for this matchup, and I guess we aren't going to be worried about.
We're not worried about the Chiefs. They cover their number for the first time all season long as well.
Oh, it's just about to go there. Did you want to talk about that Lions squad? I know what we all think is going to happen.
Nope, not worried about it. We're not going to talk about that.
All right.
I love this Broncos win, too.
All right, so the Broncos you have winning, also impressive. What's surprising to me is why Arizona's going to lose.
I mean, the 2-point win, in part, the improvements at the linebacker level, and also the fact that there's far less pressure. So those two things combined mean, bomb cyclone in favor of the home team.
Oh, well, they don't want to hear about that up in those parts right now.
They're going to get a good one. They're rebranding it.
Okay.
You did have Ravens, and I'm already thinking, I shouldn't be thinking about Monday night, but the matchup is just going to be so good.
It's such a good game.
Razor thin margin, 25-24 is what Cynthia has. All right, Sunday statement time. What do you have for me?
I'm going to make it really clean here. Okay. We haven't talked about the Raiders at all, and Brock Bowers is doing some things here. We should at least be talking about him in the contest for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Yeah. He set the rookie reception record, 13 last game. He's had 2 games of over 10-plus receptions. That also ties the lead. He's up there with Mike Ditka, Hall of Famer Mike Ditka. So I think we should at least be talking about him because he's awesome and something very happy for the Raiders.
It'd be awesome when Daniel Jones starts throwing the football.
There we go. Texas wide receiver Nico Collins, 2 scores today against the Titans. As the Texans get that offense rolling.
Okay,
I
like that one.
Sneed, I'm with you.
I had that matchup that you had Arizona-Seattle. I pointed that one out because I think Arizona wins this football game. I think Kyler Murray and company, they get it done. Seattle's defense, as Steve told us a little bit earlier in the show, suspect at times. So I'm going to roll with 2 passing touchdowns from Kyler Murray going to Who's the best receiver playing on the field in this game?
Oh, if you're saying Marvin Harrison, he better get in that conversation for offense.
And both? You think he's better than DK already?
Well, we were discussing it this week. I thought there was a conversation. I thought it was an interesting point.
I
like it, Mikey.
Tyler, deliver for me. Make me right. Game Center. It starts now.